In the quiet outskirts of Raven Hollow, nestled between a crooked row of lifeless trees, stood a decaying Victorian house known by the locals as Dollhouse Lane. Though the street had long since fallen into disrepair, children still whispered about the legend, of dolls that moved when no one watched, of a strange woman who once lived there crafting lifelike figures from porcelain, and of the curse that seeped from every floorboard, every room, every shadow. No one dared to step foot inside after sunset. But Samantha Bray, a young documentary filmmaker with a fascination for haunted legends, wasn't like most people. Armed with her camera, a notebook, and the reckless curiosity of someone who didn't believe in ghosts, Samantha arrived just before dusk. Her newest obsession was the strange tale of Annette Belmore, a once famous dollmaker who vanished without a trace in 1961, her entire estate left behind, untouched. And at the center of the tale was her final creation, a handcrafted Barbie replica with eyes said to follow you, skin too human, and hair that never stopped growing. Local folklore called her Barbie Belmore. As Samantha stepped through the rusted front gate, the wind whispered something unintelligible behind her, like a child's laughter drowned in static. She didn't look back. The house. The house loomed, almost tilting with age, its windows smeared with the breath of time and rot. Ivy clung to the cracked siding like veins feeding a decaying corpse. The front door creaked open on its own, as if inviting her in. Classic horror cliché, Samantha muttered, switching her camera to night mode. Inside, the house smelled of mildew, dust, and something fainter, like old perfume, cloying and powdery. The interior was preserved in eerie stillness, lace curtains brittle from age, wooden furniture blanketed in dust, a shattered chandelier dangling above like a spider's broken web. Dolls lined the shelves, peering out from cracked glass cabinets, their glassy eyes vacant but somehow, watchful. Samantha's skin prickled. She turned to face the living room. And there she saw it, her. A Barbie doll, unlike any she had ever seen, stood alone on a velvet pedestal. Nearly 2 feet tall, she was dressed in a delicate pink ball gown, her eyes made not of plastic but glass, too real and too blue. Her lips curled slightly into a smile that didn't seem painted on, it seemed lived in. Her hair spilled down in waves, strands so fine they looked like actual human hair. Samantha blinked. The doll's head had tilted. Only slightly. She hadn't touched it. She approached cautiously, holding her breath. On closer inspection, the doll's skin had an uncanny texture. Smooth, pale, but not plastic. There were pores. Imperfections. Moles. A small nameplate read. Barbie Belmore, 1961. My final child. What the hell? Samantha whispered, breath frosting the cold air. She lifted her camera, but before she could press record, the lights flickered. Above. The chandelier moaned, swaying slightly even though the air was still. Then came the sound. Plastic clicking. From the hallway. Then again. Click. Click. Click click click. Like heels. Tiny, plastic heels. Is someone here? She called out. Silence. She turned around. All the dolls in the glass cases had turned their heads. Every single one. Nope. She spun on her heel, rushing to the front door. It wouldn't open. The handle twisted but stuck firm, like it was welded shut. The floorboards behind her groaned. Then a whisper, so soft it sounded like breath in her ear. Stay with us. Samantha whirled around, camera shaking in her grip. Nothing. Then she noticed it, the Barbie. No longer on the pedestal. Gone. Heart hammering, Samantha turned and ran toward the back exit. A hallway stretched before her, longer than it should have been. At the end, the back door. As she sprinted, the portraits on the walls blurred into motion. Faces morphed. Eyes bled. One doll portrait opened its mouth and let out a silent scream. She reached the back door, slammed into it, and it crumbled into darkness. Samantha fell. But not onto wood. Onto plastic. The dollmaker's workshop. When she awoke, she was on her back in a vast, cold room, fluorescent light flickering above. Shelves lined the walls, stacked with hundreds of Barbie dolls in various stages of assembly. Some had no heads. Others were missing arms, their limbs twitching slightly, like puppets on invisible strings. In the center was a large operating table, blood-stained and crusted with what looked like wax, or melted skin. Hanging on the wall was a photograph of Annette Belmore, a stern-faced woman holding a Barbie doll, smiling. The caption read, "Art that never dies." Samantha staggered to her feet. And there she was again, the Barbie Belmore doll, standing at the far corner of the workshop. But now, she was taller. Almost, life-sized. Her pink dress was dirted, frayed at the ends, and her porcelain hands looked chipped. But her eyes, those eyes were still crystal clear, and they never blinked. The Barbie stepped forward. One plastic foot at a time. Click. Click. "Stay back," Samantha said, voice cracking. "You're just a doll. Just a..." The doll's face cracked with a sickening noise. From within the fracture, something dark pulsed, like blood, or ink. And then the mouth opened. And it spoke. In Annette's voice. She wanted to be perfect. "I made her so." Samantha screamed, turning to flee, but the walls warped around her. The shelves stretched into infinity. Dolls began to twitch and chatter their teeth. One fell from the shelf, dragging itself toward her, moaning softly. Another dropped. Then another. Until dozens of Barbie dolls swarmed the floor, crawling, pulling themselves with broken fingers, eyes rolling in sockets. Samantha ran. The mirror room. She burst into the next room. A long hallway lined with full-length mirrors. Each mirror showed her reflection, but slightly different. In one, her hair was gone. In another, her eyes were black. In the next, her skin was pale plastic. Then, she saw one that wasn't a reflection at all. It was her, but with Barbie's face. Porcelain skin. Plastic joints. Eyes stitched open. And she was screaming silently, beating on the mirror from the inside. Samantha fell back. The reflection stepped forward, now on her side of the glass. "Barbie Samantha." She reached out a hand. "Trade places," she whispered, voice overlapping with a dozen dolls. "No." Samantha shouted, turning to run, but a mirror fell forward and shattered over her, slicing into her shoulder. She stumbled into another room, blood soaking through her sleeve. Barbie's nursery. It was a child's room. Pink walls. Stuffed animals. A massive crib in the center with oversized lace curtains. On the mobile above, human teeth dangled instead of stars. Inside the crib was a massive Barbie doll. At least 6 feet tall. Skin stitched in patches. One arm had wires where veins should be. It sat up. And grinned. "Play with me," it whispered. Samantha backed away, but the door slammed shut behind her. She grabbed a metal rod and stabbed the doll's eye. It let out a screech, but didn't die. It laughed. It laughed and grew taller. The walls pulsed with pink light. Samantha collapsed in the corner, clutching her camera like a lifeline. The doll's voice echoed from everywhere now. "You came to tell my story, Samantha. So become part of it." She blacked out. When she awoke, the camera was still on. She watched the footage in horror. The video showed her, speaking to no one. Walking calmly through the house. Smiling. Dancing with invisible dolls. But worst of all, the last frame. It showed her face, already changed. Porcelain skin. Glass eyes. Lips curled into a smile she didn't feel. Samantha looked into the dusty mirror beside her. Her reflection blinked, but she didn't. The camera dropped. And behind her, Barbie Belmore watched. Smiling. Waiting. Darkness breathed around Samantha as she opened her eyes. A sour chemical smell filled her nostrils, like acetone and scorched plastic. Her head pounded as if something had been opened. She reached up instinctively and touched her temple. Her fingertips brushed against something smooth. Too smooth. She blinked, trying to adjust to the sickly pink glow of the room. She wasn't in the nursery anymore. She was strapped to a chair, arms fixed down with velvet restraints that looked sweet but bit into her skin. The room resembled a twisted version of a beauty parlor. Rusted scissors, paintbrushes, scalpels, and grotesque makeup kits were scattered across blood-speckled counters. Wigs hung from hooks, some still dripping with fluids that weren't dye. Mirrors lined every wall, but none showed her reflection. Only Barbie Belmore. Dozens of versions. Each one more disturbing than the last. The dollmaker's voice. A speaker crackled above her, old and dust-choked. Then came that voice again. Annette Belmore's, crisp, elegant, with a kind of maternal madness. Beauty is eternal, Samantha. Flesh fails. But plastic is perfection. The chair jolted, spinning slowly as robotic arms descended from the ceiling, their metal claws snapping open. Each one held a tool, scalpels, makeup brushes, sewing needles, syringes filled with pink fluid. Samantha screamed, thrashing against the restraints. A mechanical arm reached down, brushing blush across her cheek. Another dabbed her lips with blood-red color. Then, the needle. She watched in horror as it plunged into her neck. The fluid burned through her veins like acid made of glitter and nightmares. She shook violently as her skin began to numb. She felt it. Her skin was changing. Transformation begins. The numbness spread. She stared down at her arm, watching in terror as the pores disappeared. Her freckles faded. Her veins vanished beneath a glassy white surface that reflected too much light. She wasn't sweating anymore. She couldn't. Her arm was porcelain. No, 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 she shrieked. A crack formed down her forearm. Not like a bone break, no. It was the crack of ceramic. And inside, there was nothing. Hollow. The pain was exquisite. Her nerves screamed as flesh pulled itself into sculpted imitation. One of the mirrors flickered. She saw herself now, half human, half Barbie. Skin waxy and tight, eyes wider than they should be. Her pupils were beginning to fade. The color in them? Paint. Stop it, she cried. Please. A whisper danced around her, soft as a lullaby. You'll be the perfect Samantha. Escape attempt. Suddenly, the lights sputtered. Sparks rained from above. The chair halted. One of the mechanical arms jerked and snapped off, clattering to the floor. The speaker crackled into static screams. Taking her chance, Samantha twisted, screaming through clenched teeth as her altered arm bent unnaturally to slip free of the restraints. The broken porcelain flaked off like old eggshell. She yanked her other hand free, then stumbled to her feet, her legs barely responding, like a doll being taught to walk. Alarms blared somewhere deep in the walls. She ran, limping through the pink hall, leaving bloody porcelain footprints behind. Behind her, distorted lullabies echoed through hidden speakers. Laughter, high-pitched and warped. Barbie is waiting. Barbie is watching. Barbie is you. The pink corridor. The hallway twisted, stretching longer than physically possible. The walls pulsed, alive, stitched with doll hair, eyelids, and pink veins. Samantha's vision blurred. Her body betrayed her more with every step. Her reflection in a cracked wall panel showed her arms thinning. Her waist was unnaturally small. Too small. Her bones were compressing. Reforming. She vomited pink bile. Then, she saw a figure up ahead. It was a girl. No older than 8. She wore a tattered tutu and her hair was matted with red. She clutched a mangled Barbie by the hair. Samantha stopped, panting. "Help me," she rasped. "Please." The girl looked up. Her face had no features. Just a doll's blank face. She screamed and ran at Samantha with inhuman speed. Samantha turned and sprinted, barely keeping her balance as the floor writhed beneath her feet. She turned into another room and slammed the door shut behind her. The doll graveyard. Silence. It was pitch dark. She fumbled for a light switch, hand trembling. When she finally found it, the fluorescent light snapped on, revealing hundreds of mutilated Barbie dolls hanging from the ceiling. Each had a name tag. Each was once a real person. Julia, age 21, refused to smile. Carla, age 12, hair not perfect. Deanna, age 30, tried to run. Each one had been turned into a doll. Real skin stitched. Eyes wide and fixed. Some missing limbs. Some still twitching. Samantha backed away in horror. God! The door behind her creaked open. She turned, but no one was there. She looked down. A small doll stood at her feet, dressed in her clothes. With her face. It opened its mouth. Trade places. The mirror ritual. The lights went out again. A deep hum filled the air as mirrors slid down from the ceiling, surrounding her. In each mirror, she saw a version of herself, perfected, plasticized, painted. Each reflection was smiling. Then, movement. The mirror Samantha stepped out of the glass. One by one. They closed in. She backed away, but the reflections moved faster. Unnatural. Twitching. They whispered in unison. Barbie is eternal. You are not. One lunged. Samantha swung the camera at its face, shattering its head into ceramic chunks. But another grabbed her from behind. She screamed as cold hands gripped her scalp, pulling, yanking. Her hair tore loose. Blood ran down her back. Another reflection opened its mouth and vomited glittery pink goo that hissed as it touched her skin, melting it into a moldable paste. "I'm not a doll," she screamed. A voice from the speaker laughed. "You're already halfway there. The real Barbie." As the mirror clones dragged her toward the center of the room, something else stepped forward from the darkness. The real Barbie Belmore. Now fully formed. 7 feet tall. Hair like a flowing blonde river. Face expressionless. Skin like the finest porcelain, but with veins visible underneath. Her joints clicked as she moved. She towered over Samantha. "You wanted my story?" she asked, voice like cracked vinyl. "Now you will become the story." She raised one perfect hand and touched Samantha's chest. Samantha felt her heartbeat slow. Her skin tightened. Her eyes dried. She tried to scream, but her jaw wouldn't move. She was freezing in place. Like a sculpture. The whispering room. When she woke again, she was sitting. Upright. Dressed in a pink dress. Arms frozen in position. She couldn't move. Couldn't blink. Couldn't breathe. Her vision blurred, but she could still see. She sat on a shelf now. With the others. A tag around her neck read. Samantha Bray, age 28, newest edition. All around her, dolls whispered without moving their mouths. "Kill me. Help us. She never lets us sleep." A little girl passed through the room, giggling. Behind her walked Barbie Belmore. The real one. Now wearing Samantha's face. There is no time in Dollhouse Lane. Only playtime. Samantha didn't know how many hours or days had passed since her transformation began. She could no longer feel hunger or thirst. She couldn't blink, cry, or scream. Trapped in a glassy shell of porcelain and horror, she sat propped up on a satin-pink chair in a room filled with eternally smiling dolls. Her body remained perfectly still, but her mind screamed, raged, begged. Inside her frozen skull, Samantha was still alive. Still human, trapped in a shell of cursed beauty. From her immobile eyes, she saw everything. Every twisted game. Every new addition. Every horror that crawled into Barbie Belmore's domain. The new girl. One day, if days still meant anything, a girl was dragged in. Samantha watched as two mirror Barbies, stiff-jointed and whispering, pulled a sobbing child into the playroom. She was no older than 11. Pale with stringy brown hair and a scar across her chin. She screamed until her voice cracked. "Please. Let me go. I don't want to be pretty." Barbie Belmore appeared, gliding across the floor as if floating. She knelt in front of the girl. "But beauty is forever, darling." The girl sobbed harder. "I don't want forever." Barbie's face remained frozen in its porcelain smile. "Then you'll stay here, until you change your mind." She snapped her fingers. Mechanical arms burst from the walls. They grabbed the child and began to brush her hair, clean her face, paint her lips. The girl screamed as they forced a needle into her arm. Her skin shimmered, just slightly. It had begun. The puppet parade. Later that night, a sound echoed through the playroom, a music box melody, eerily cheerful, yet distorted as if it was playing underwater. Barbie Belmore's voice rang out across the intercoms. "All my beautiful girls, it's time for the parade." Samantha was lifted from her seat by cold plastic hands. Dozens of other dolls were raised with her. Former girls, women, teens, all with half-plastic faces, glass eyes, and stitched smiles. They marched down the hallway in synchronized steps, their joints clicking rhythmically. Click click click. Samantha couldn't stop her legs. They moved without her will, her body no longer hers. Her arms swayed gracefully. Her head tilted perfectly. Her mind screamed endlessly. They passed through the hall of mirrors, where their reflections showed what they once were. The contrast was sickening. At the end of the hallway stood Barbie Belmore, arms outstretched like a mother welcoming her children home. Each doll curtsied in front of her. Then came the worst part. The dolls began to sing. Not with voices, but with their teeth. Chattering, grinding, scraping. It was a lullaby of madness. The escape of doll number 99. Later, when the others had returned to the playroom, a sharp cracking sound came from Samantha's left. Her shelf neighbor, a girl with a partially crushed jaw and #99 etched into her collarbone, was twitching violently. Crack. Her arm broke free. Pink ooze spilled from the wound. With a garbled growl, she began pulling the rest of herself loose from the shelf. Her fingers snapped backward as she fought the porcelain bonds holding her muscles in place. She turned to Samantha. Her eyes were wild. Alive. "Don't just sit there," she hissed. "Fight it." Samantha wanted to scream. To speak. But her lips would not move. The girl smashed her porcelain arm against the wall, tearing it off. She stumbled down the hallway, dragging one leg behind her like a rag doll. Alarms blared. The walls groaned. Dolls swarmed. Barbie clones with shattered limbs and cracked faces leapt from the shadows, screeching in mechanical voices. They tackled her mid-hallway. The last thing Samantha saw was Barbie Belmore herself, walking calmly up to number 99. She knelt, placed a hand on her cheek, and whispered. "It hurts, doesn't it? That means you're almost perfect." Then she plunged a needle into number 99's skull. Her body convulsed violently, and her mouth opened in a silent scream. She froze mid-motion. Perfect again. They dragged her back into the workshop. The doll nursery. Days, or hours, later, Samantha was wheeled into a new room. The nursery. Walls painted with pastel nightmares. Giant cribs. Oversized rattles. High chairs holding full-grown women dressed like infants, dolls for Barbie's imaginary daughters. One sobbed silently, a pacifier glued to her lips. Another's eyelids had been removed, her eyes locked open with stitches. They didn't speak. They couldn't. Samantha was placed into a crib of her own. Above her, the mobile spun. Instead of stars and moons, it dangled eyeballs, teeth, and fingers. The walls whispered. "Rockabye baby, your bones are too wide. We'll shave them and shape them, so you fit inside." Then Barbie Belmore appeared above her. She looked down with that eternal grin. Every girl wants to be a doll at heart. You just didn't know it yet. Samantha's heart pounded in her chest, but faintly. Slower. Too slow. She was becoming less alive by the second. The Dollmaker's secret. That night, Samantha was wheeled into a secret chamber hidden behind the nursery wall. It was lined with jars, floating inside were eyes. Fingers. Smiling lips. Each jar was labeled with a name. In the center of the room stood Annette Belmore's preserved corpse, dressed in silk, one hand holding the original Barbie Belmore doll. Annette's face had long decayed, but the doll's smile remained untouched. That's when it hit Samantha. Barbie Belmore wasn't a doll. She was possessed. A vessel. Annette's soul had transferred into her creation. The real Annette was long dead, but her curse lived on in Barbie. A spirit trapped inside a plastic shell, seeking perfection through possession, replication, and mutilation. This wasn't about beauty. It was about control. Samantha's blood chilled. In front of her, the Belmore doll's eyes blinked. And smiled. The others. Later, when she was returned to the gallery room, she heard the whispers again. This time, clearly. Not from ghosts. From the other dolls. They were like her. Still conscious. Still trapped. Through broken, static-like telepathy, they spoke. There's a way out. The kiln. Destroy the original. Free us. The original Barbie Belmore doll, the one clutched by Annette's corpse, was the source. Break it, and the curse may end. But no one had made it that far. Anyone who tried was turned into something worse. Not just a doll. But a forever toy. The awakening. Something shifted inside Samantha. A spark. A rebellion. A memory of what she was. She focused every ounce of energy into her limbs. She strained until cracks ran up her arms and neck. Her fingers twitched. Just a millimeter. But it was something. She remembered her name. Her voice. Her pain. And pain meant life. A voice rang in her head. Her own. You are not a doll. You are not a doll. You are not a doll. Her eye rolled. Her fingers twitched again. The cracks widened. The dolls around her watched, unmoving, but their minds began to chant. Break it, break her, break it, free us. The final game. Barbie Belmore entered the gallery, unaware. She walked past the dolls, humming a sweet, toxic melody. Samantha moved. Just slightly. Barbie paused. Turned. Their eyes met. Porcelain versus porcelain. But Barbie's eyes widened. "You're still awake," she said, voice like a lullaby breaking apart. Samantha forced her mouth to move. It took every ounce of strength. She whispered. "You forgot something." Barbie tilted her head. "Oh." Samantha's arm shot out, faster than Barbie could react. She grabbed the twisted crown from Barbie's head, the piece embedded with Annette's soul, and snapped it in half. Barbie screamed. Not with her mouth, but from every speaker, every wall, every doll. The house shook. The lights exploded. The dolls screamed in unison, their voices layered and broken. "We're free." Barbie's body convulsed, her limbs twisting and melting like candle wax. Her face cracked open, revealing the rotting soul of Annette Belmore, howling in rage. Samantha collapsed. Her porcelain skin began to bleed. The moment Samantha shattered the cursed crown, something changed, not only in the twisted house, but within herself. Her vision flickered violently between black voids and pale light. Her skin burned as if 1,000 needles pierced it from the inside. The porcelain shell that once imprisoned her was cracking, bleeding. She gasped as air filled her lungs for the first time in days. She could breathe. She could feel. Her limbs, stiff and fragile, trembled as she slowly pulled herself from the display shelf. Every motion brought pain, like dry bones grinding against themselves, but she welcomed the agony. Pain meant she was alive. And she wasn't alone. Around her, the other dolls began twitching, jerky, chaotic movements, like marionettes waking from nightmares. Dozens of eyes blinked at once. Painted lips began to tremble. Names once etched into collars faded into smoke. A chorus of weak, hoarse voices rose from the shadows. "She's dead. We can feel again. She's gone, she's gone." But the air told a different story. Samantha felt it first, the cold returning. And then the voice. The false death. From deep below the house, a low humming sound reverberated up through the foundation. The walls groaned like they were waking up, and the floors rippled beneath Samantha's feet. The pink lighting dimmed. And then. Laughter. Not cheerful. Not human. It echoed like a skipping vinyl, jagged and haunting. Did you think it would be that easy? A trapdoor burst open in the center of the gallery. A gust of heat spilled out, smelling of sulfur and burnt plastic. The dolls around Samantha dropped to the floor, screaming and convulsing. From the darkness below, Barbie Belmore rose again, reborn. Her once smooth face was now warped and molten, like half-melted wax. Her eyes had turned pitch black, ringed with cracks, as if trying to burst out of their sockets. Veins of black tar pulsed through her arms. Her voice now carried Annette Belmore's rage twisted into something inhuman. "You killed the doll, but I am the house. I am the curse." Samantha stumbled back, nearly tripping over a fallen doll. Her injuries throbbed, but she forced herself to stand. She wouldn't run. Not again. The house awakens. The house shifted around her. Barbie's power surged through every corridor, reanimating the walls, windows, and furniture. What was once a decaying Victorian manor was now a pulsating doll factory from hell. Shelves rearranged themselves into spines. Pink walls oozed blood and glitter. Giant rotating gears emerged from behind curtains, spewing plastic limbs from their mechanisms. A monstrous version of the iconic Barbie dream house loomed beyond, transformed into a flesh-and-all hybrid abomination. Everywhere Samantha turned, she saw pieces of girls, eyes trapped in jars, fingers reaching from beneath floorboards, faces stitched into the wallpaper. The entire house was alive with Barbie's spirit. This was no longer a curse. It was a hive. And she was at the center. The hive mother. Barbie Belmore's new form stood nearly 9 feet tall. Her limbs moved like twisted marionette strings. Her back cracked open to reveal dozens of miniature doll heads, all whispering different voices. You're going to be perfect, Samantha. You've always wanted to be loved, adored, frozen in time. Barbie lunged. Samantha dove aside, crashing through a cracked door that led into a hallway of mirrors. Her reflection showed her true form, half human, half porcelain. Her right arm was still glazed, but cracking. Her left was red and raw. She didn't recognize her face. Tears finally escaped her eyes. But she couldn't stop now. Behind her, Barbie's voice boomed through the halls like a storm. Play with me, Samantha. The nursery inferno. Samantha limped toward the nursery, remembering what the dolls had whispered before. The kiln. She found it in the back of the workshop. A monstrous furnace used for baking porcelain doll parts. Now it pulsed like a beating heart, casting an eerie red glow across the room. She staggered to the control panel. Old buttons. Rusted switches. But one was labeled clearly. Final burn. Before she could press it, the walls exploded inward. Barbie burst through the plaster, howling like a demon, arms twisted into scissors and needles, her torso splitting to reveal the original Annette Belmore's desiccated face, screaming in agony. You think you can destroy me? Samantha grabbed a jagged shard of porcelain and drove it into her own arm, shattering the last of the plastic shell. Her scream of pain echoed into the depths of the house. And she felt herself become fully human again. Then, she slammed her hand onto the final burn button. The kiln roared to life. The purge. Flames surged from vents and cracks in the walls. The heat spread quickly, consuming the gallery, the nursery, and the twisted Barbie dream house. Dolls caught fire, shrieking in voices far too human. Barbie staggered, her limbs melting, her porcelain body shattering in pieces. No. No. I was beautiful. I was eternal. The furnace belched out one final roar, and the house collapsed in on itself, pulling everything into the inferno. Samantha leapt from a second-story window just as the structure imploded behind her, choking the air with black smoke and charred plastic. The sound of screaming dolls slowly faded into silence. She lay on the grass outside, covered in ash and blood, the sun rising over Raven Hollow. It was over. Or so she thought. The forgotten room. Days passed. The house was gone. Reduced to rubble. Samantha was treated in a nearby hospital, silent, shaken, but alive. The doctors didn't believe her story. No one ever would. But one night, while alone in her room, she noticed something. A crack had appeared in her right eye. Just a hairline. She leaned closer to the mirror. And from of her throat, she coughed up a single strand of blonde hair. Her skin paled. Her bones ached. She remembered Barbie's words. You killed the doll, but I am the curse. The final horror. Back in Raven Hollow, children dared one another to go to the edge of Dollhouse Lane. Even though the house was gone, they said they could hear music box melodies when the wind was right. Some said they saw a tall, elegant woman with glass eyes watching from the forest. Others found dolls in the dirt, ones that looked too real. One little girl picked up a doll with red hair. The doll smiled. And blinked. The hospital lights buzzed above Samantha's head like angry wasps. It had been 2 weeks since Dollhouse Lane burned, yet nothing felt over. She could still feel the heat of the furnace. Still hear the screams of melting dolls echoing in her skull. Still see Barbie Belmore's smile, perfect, unbroken, eternal. But the worst part wasn't what haunted her in dreams. It was what was happening to her body. Her right eye was now completely glassy. The iris had dulled to a sickly shade of blue, and her vision in that eye began distorting, as though she were looking through a toy lens. Her fingertips had turned impossibly smooth. And each day, her skin lost more color. More texture. More humanity. She knew the curse hadn't died in that fire. It had latched onto her. Night visitor. The first real sign came on the 13th night. She awoke to soft clicking on the tiled floor of her hospital room. Like plastic heels tapping gently in the dark. Her body went rigid. She turned her head slowly toward the foot of the bed. A doll stood there. Not more than 2 feet tall. Its skin gleamed with that familiar porcelain shimmer. Its lips were painted a soft pink. Its eyes, glass and deep, were alive. It wore a red dress. The same one Samantha had worn the day she arrived at Dollhouse Lane. And worst of all, it had her face. The doll tilted its head. Then it whispered, in a voice that wasn't a whisper at all, it was inside her skull. Your body is perfect. I just needed your soul to catch up. Samantha screamed, but the nurses who burst into the room found nothing. No doll. Just her, wide-eyed and bleeding from the corners of her mouth. The return of number 99. The next night, Samantha received a visitor, an old woman claiming to be a paranormal researcher. Her name was Marta Kells, and she had been tracking the Dollmaker's curse for years. She sat at Samantha's bedside with solemn eyes and a cracked journal. You're not the first to survive, she said. But you might be the first to stay, human. Samantha tried to speak, but her voice was raw. Her throat was changing, tightening. Marta opened the journal, revealing sketches of the dolls, photos of missing girls, and a list of those who tried to escape. All of them were gone now, except one. At the bottom of the page, in shaking pen. Hashtag 99, last seen crawling from the ashes. She's still alive. Samantha croaked. Marta nodded slowly. Alive isn't the word. She's awake. And she's angry. She's building something beneath the rubble. Samantha's blood froze. What do you mean building something? Marta shut the journal. Her eyes narrowed. The curse wasn't destroyed, Samantha. You scattered it. The doll plague. The following week, things got worse. Girls across Raven Hollow began disappearing. It started with whispers, young women complaining of feeling watched, of dolls appearing in places they didn't belong. Then came the vanishings. First 1. Then 3. Then 6. Each victim was last seen near the ruins of Dollhouse Lane. Each one had something strange in common, they had recently owned Barbie dolls with unfamiliar faces. Samantha turned on the news one night in the hospital and saw a story that made her stomach drop. A girl in another state had been found entombed in porcelain. Her body was perfectly intact but glazed like fine china. No heartbeat. No breathing. But her eyes moved. She smiled, the reporter said, trembling. Even while she cried. Samantha threw the remote through the TV. Her arms no longer bled when cut. She was becoming something else. The mirror room returns. That night, she was sedated and placed into a psych evaluation room. But the room had mirrors. Too many mirrors. When Samantha opened her eyes, she wasn't alone. Her reflections had returned. Dozens of them. Each a slightly altered version of her. One had blackened eyes. One had no mouth. One was fully Barbie, frozen in a manic, eternal grin. They stepped out from the mirrors again, just like before. But this time, they didn't want to trade places. They wanted to take her. You left us behind, they hissed. You burned us. We melt, but we never die. Samantha screamed and backed against the far wall. The real mirror cracked. And through it stepped Barbie Belmore, but now fused with something else. Number 99. Number 99 reborn. The thing that stood in the room was neither Barbie Belmore nor girl. It was an amalgamation of melted faces, stitched doll hair, and rage. Half of its body was sleek and plastic. The other half was raw flesh, burned and broken. Its smile was Samantha's. "You let her burn me," number 99 rasped. "Now we rebuild, and you will help us." The mirrors around them shattered. Marta's voice came from the hallway, screaming Samantha's name. But it was too late. Number 99 reached out and touched Samantha's chest. There was a click. And something inside Samantha unlocked. She fell forward, convulsing as her bones popped and reformed. Her ribs narrowed. Her fingers shrank. A scream that wasn't hers tore through the air. The doll inside. She awoke hours later on the floor of the burned-out shell that was once Dollhouse Lane. Marta was beside her, dead, her eyes turned to glass. Samantha looked at her own hands. No longer human. Her flesh was translucent. Veins like pink thread. She tried to speak, but her voice had become hollow. Behind her, the nursery had returned. The fire hadn't stopped it. It had only fed it. The dolls had rebuilt the house. And at the top of the grand staircase, Barbie Belmore, now fully merged with number 99, watched her. "The Dollmaker lives on through you." The final sentence. Samantha ran. Out the door. Into the forest. But the world had changed. Every tree held a doll's face. Every shadow whispered her name. She fell to her knees in the clearing where she first entered the cursed property. And there, beneath the roots of a gnarled tree, was a freshly dug grave. The tombstone read, "Samantha Bray, perfect forever." And from the dirt, a hand reached up. Her hand. Still human. Still bleeding. Still trying to escape. But the doll version of her just smiled. And walked back into the woods. The moon over Raven Hollow was dull and distorted that night, smothered in a veil of gray fog. The woods no longer breathed. Trees stood still, silent spectators to the hell rising from below. And deep beneath the cracked bones of Dollhouse Lane, something monstrous stirred. Something that should never have existed. Something made of flesh and plastic, rage and perfection, innocence and torment. Something that called itself the Dollmaker God. Samantha's awakening. Samantha's body wandered, but her mind was buried alive. Somewhere inside her cursed shell, the last fragments of her humanity clawed against the walls of the porcelain prison that was now her flesh. She was fully transformed, skin like polished ivory, joints too smooth, smile fixed into a faint curve she could no longer control. But she was awake. Trapped. Watching. Living death. She was now the first of the god dolls, handpicked by number 99 and the spirit of Annette Belmore to serve as their new messiah. Her mind was broadcast across every mirror, every Barbie face, every cursed toy spread across the country. She was becoming a symbol. Not of beauty. But of obedience. The global outbreak. The curse had spread far beyond Raven Hollow. All across the world, Barbie dolls were waking up. In closets. Under beds. Inside school lockers and toy chests. And they were no longer content to be played with. They were ready to play back. Girls who owned them began vanishing overnight. Replaced by life-sized replicas that smiled too wide. Fathers opened doors to find their daughters frozen in mid-dance, eyes painted glass, voices gone. Mothers wept over photos that blinked. Hospitals filled with girls in comas, their skin growing smoother by the hour, their mouths whispering one name in sleep. Barbie Belmore. The temple below. Underneath the ruins of the house, the Dollmaker's temple had emerged, a labyrinth of bone-colored corridors lit by flickering vanity bulbs. The walls pulsed with synthetic veins. Human faces stretched across panels like wallpaper. Hands jutted from doorframes. Teeth lined the edges of furniture. Here, Samantha, now called the First Beautiful, was prepared for her ascension. Number 99 approached her on a floating slab of broken toys. Half of her face had become a melted porcelain mask. The other was still childlike, burned, warped, vicious. "Do you feel it?" she whispered into Samantha's ear. "The whole world is a dollhouse now. And we are the gods." Samantha couldn't scream. But deep within, she raged. The broadcast. From within the temple's heart, a massive screen displayed thousands of live feeds from across the world: bedrooms, playgrounds, daycare centers, shopping malls. Each showed dolls moving when no one looked. Each showed girls disappearing behind closet doors, only to be replaced by plastic perfection. Then came the signal. A high-pitched hum, broadcast through mirrors and TV screens worldwide. The Dollmaker's Code. Every girl who had ever loved Barbie, paused. Stared. Listened. And began to change. Some whispered, "I want to be pretty." Others wept as their fingers turned to porcelain, screaming until their mouths stitched shut in perfect pink smiles. It was the beginning of the plastic age. The unseen resistance. But not everyone obeyed. In the darkness of the world's basements and ruins, a resistance had formed. People who had lost daughters, sisters, wives. People who had burned their dolls, smashed their mirrors, and painted over every reflective surface. They were called, the broken glass. And one of them had found something, alive. Buried beneath the roots of that cursed tree in Raven Hollow. It was Samantha's original body, her human shell, still bleeding, heart still beating, soul still screaming. She wasn't dead. She was split. And now, the resistance had her. And they wanted her back. The ritual of return. Deep in a forgotten church, under cracked stained glass windows, the broken glass performed a ritual written in the last pages of Marta Kell's journal. A forbidden rite. One designed to reunite the soul with the flesh, even if the body was broken. Samantha's human body, pale and blood-soaked, was laid upon an altar surrounded by shattered dolls. They chanted. "Let the soul reject the shell. Let the flesh reclaim the self." At that exact moment, in the Dollmaker's temple, Samantha's plastic body screamed from the inside. Her eyes turned red. She collapsed. Split in two. The scream echoed across dimensions. In one world, porcelain cracked. In another, blood surged. Samantha's soul was being ripped apart. The temple walls shook. Dolls convulsed. Barbie Belmore snarled in rage. "No. She's mine." Samantha's plastic shell rose, but her smile was gone. Her eyes burned with rage. She grabbed a mirror and smashed it. Then another. Then another. Each mirror shattered unleashed a chorus of howling spirits, girls once trapped, now freed. The curse was weakening. The Dollmaker God awakens. But number 99 had one final act to play. In the core of the temple, the body of Annette Belmore was fused into a mechanical womb, a heart of molten porcelain, gears, and human remains. As Samantha broke mirror after mirror, the womb opened. From within crawled the Dollmaker God. 15 feet tall. With a face of every girl it had ever stolen. Dozens of arms ending in scalpels, brushes, clamps. It whispered one word over and over. Beautiful. Then it moved toward Samantha. The battle of flesh and plastic. Samantha grabbed a jagged doll's arm, now a spear. She plunged it into the Dollmaker God's torso. It roared. Scalpels rained down. One sliced into her leg, plastic shattered, exposing human flesh beneath. She screamed. But she didn't stop. She ran through the halls, tearing down every painting, every portrait, every smiling face. Each broken smile weakened. The God. She reached the throne room. The final mirror stood tall. Behind it, her human reflection, alive, breathing, crying. She raised a fist. No more dolls. She smashed it. The collapse. The temple trembled. Walls exploded. Dolls caught fire. The dollmaker god shrieked, its faces melting, its limbs spasming. Then, silence. And then, light. Rebirth. Samantha awoke in the old church. Human. Bleeding. Breathing. Around her, the resistance wept. She had returned. The curse was broken. Or so they believed. The final scene. Weeks later, in a distant city, a mother bought her daughter a second-hand Barbie from a street vendor. The doll's smile was slightly chipped. Its eyes were blue. Too blue. That night, the little girl said, "Mommy, she talks to me." The mother smiled tiredly. "What does she say?" The girl looked up. Her pupils faded to glass. "She says, playtime never ends." The world thought the nightmare had passed. Fires had been put out. Dolls burned. Mirrors shattered. Samantha Bray, the girl who survived the curse of Barbie Belmore, had returned to her body. Her flesh was raw, her mind fractured, but she was alive. For a time, there was quiet. But silence isn't peace. Silence is waiting. Because in the places no one looked, in dusty attic boxes, abandoned dollhouses, and cracked porcelain smiles, something still breathed. A familiar house. It began again on the outskirts of Raven Hollow, in the ruins of an old toy factory. Where the air still tasted of burnt sugar and melted plastic. Where something rebuilt itself beneath the surface. A structure emerged, brick by brick, board by board, forming a towering, pink and white Gothic monstrosity, a life-sized dollhouse 5 stories tall, visible only to those already marked by the curse. Inside, every room pulsed with memories. The nursery. The mirror gallery. The workshop. The furnace. And at the heart of it all, suspended by tangled doll hair and golden thread, was Barbie Belmore's final body. Now more than spirit. Now more than doll. Now a god of plastic and pain. Samantha returns. Samantha knew it hadn't ended. The dreams returned first, visions of porcelain cities, rooms without doors, girls with smiles stretched to their ears whispering, "She never left." Then came the blood in the mirror. And finally, the voice. "Samantha, it's your turn to play again." She followed the whispers back to Raven Hollow. To where the earth had cracked open like a toy chest dropped from heaven. She descended into the new dollhouse. And it welcomed her. The new world. Inside, the air was thick with sickly sweet perfume and embalming fluid. She passed through hallways lined with flesh dolls, girls twisted into chairs, beds, and chandeliers. Their eyes blinked. Their mouths moved. They hummed lullabies through shredded vocal cords. Playtime never ends. The walls pulsed like a beating heart. The floors wept tears of melted silicone. Samantha no longer flinched. She had become a part of this world, but now, she was something more. Something vengeful. The revelation. In the ballroom of the damned, where once dolls danced for Barbie's amusement, Samantha found a mirror that bled. In it, she saw not her face, but every version of herself. Samantha the child, clutching her first Barbie. Samantha the prisoner, screaming as her skin cracked. Samantha the doll, smiling against her will. They all spoke in unison. "We are you. But we are not free." And behind them stood Barbie Belmore, her face shattered, leaking black glitter and blood. "You broke my mirrors. But you never broke my core." Samantha stepped forward. "No. But I came back to finish it." The doll god ascends. The room darkened. The walls peeled back. And from the ceiling descended Barbie Belmore reborn, now 20 feet tall, her hair woven from souls, her eyes carved from sapphire, her arms a writhing mass of doll limbs. Her voice shattered glass. I am the perfect form. I am play. I am forever. Samantha screamed as the force slammed her into the floor. Bone cracked. Blood poured. But she laughed. Because in her hand, she clutched the final piece. The original Annette Belmore doll, the true anchor of the curse. She whispered a final word. Burn. The dollhouse burns again. The doll ignited in her palm. Not with fire, but with truth. Reality peeled like wallpaper. The dollhouse moaned. The air split open with screams. Dolls shattered like exploding stars. Mirrors warped into screaming mouths. Barbie Belmore shrieked, her body writhing, melting, trying to rebuild itself mid-death. But Samantha would not stop. She tore the walls apart with her bare hands. She shattered every cursed relic. Every haunted portrait. Every last Barbie clone. The final transformation. As the dollhouse collapsed around her, Samantha fell to her knees. Her arms were no longer human. Her blood was no longer red. She was becoming the curse. The spirits of the cursed girls gathered around her, hollow-eyed and doll-like. We can't leave without you. You have to become the cage now. Take her place. Samantha sobbed. And then smiled. The first real smile in years. Then I'll hold her forever. The curse contained. Samantha stood in the center of the crumbling dollhouse and spread her arms. The spirits rushed into her. Barbie screamed, desperate, monstrous. Samantha screamed back. Their souls collided. And the dollhouse imploded. A white flash consumed everything. 1 year later. Raven Hollow is quiet. The house is gone. No more disappearances. No more whispers. Just silence. But in a glass case, inside a toy museum far from town, there sits a strange, one-of-a-kind Barbie doll. Its eyes are sad. Its smile is real. The tag reads. Prototype, never released. And if you listen closely. Just before the lights go out. She whispers. Playtime never ends. The toy museum was quiet that night. Not a single footstep echoed through its long glass corridors. The exhibit sat frozen in time, hand-carved wooden horses, tin soldiers, porcelain clowns, and velvet dolls lined in rows, each one preserved behind sterile panes of glass, under the glow of cold halogen lights. At the very end of the main hall, past a forgotten display of vintage rag dolls, stood a single case. Clean. Untouched. Almost forgotten. Inside sat a Barbie doll. But not like the others. She didn't sparkle. She didn't shine. She didn't wear a ball gown or hold accessories. She wore a burned red dress, its edges blackened and cracked. Her blonde hair was tangled with strands of dark, human-like fiber. One hand was outstretched toward the glass. Her smile was faint. Too faint. And her eyes, they were wet. The forgotten tag. The display had no plaque. No official name. Only a faded, handwritten card inside the case. Prototype, unknown origin. Donated anonymously. Do not open. Beneath it, scratched into the inside corner of the case, so faint it went unnoticed by curators, were 5 words. I am still in here. The night janitor. Isaac, the night janitor, had passed the exhibit dozens of times. He avoided it now. He didn't know why. It was just a doll. But something about her made his stomach twist. Like she was watching him with pity. Like she knew something. One night, during a storm, the lights flickered overhead as Isaac swept the marble floors. He passed the case, and stopped. Her head had moved. It was only slightly, tilted left, chin a degree higher. But it hadn't been that way before. He leaned in, squinting. A small, almost inaudible tap hit the glass. He jumped back. The doll hadn't moved. Not at all. But now there were cracks in her plastic cheeks. Like something inside was pressing out. Like she was trying to escape. The whisper. That night, just before Isaac left, he heard it. From somewhere in the museum's walls. Or the vents. Or maybe inside his head. A child's voice, almost like a lullaby. One becomes many. Many become one. The dollhouse is never done. He turned. The Barbie's eyes were now turned directly toward him. And she was smiling. But not the same way. Not that empty, glossy grin from before. This one was human. And sad. The final visitor. Weeks later, a little girl visited the museum with her class. She didn't speak much. Quiet, withdrawn. Her name tag read, Chloe. She wandered off during the tour. Ended up in front of the Barbie case. Alone. The lights flickered. She tilted her head. Stepped forward. Pressed her palm to the glass. The Barbie's hand rose and matched it. A slow, deliberate movement. And then the glass cracked. Chloe smiled. The unseen exchange. The security footage showed only static for 11 seconds. When it returned, Chloe rejoined her classmates. But something about her was different. Her posture. Too straight. Her movements too smooth. And her smile. Too perfect. Back at the case, the Barbie doll remained inside. But now her eyes were wide with terror. Her hand was pressed to the glass again, but this time, from the inside, as though she were pounding, silently screaming to get out. Her mouth had cracked open slightly. And beneath the layers of plastic, you could just barely make out human teeth. Closing words. Some say the curse is over. That the house was destroyed. That the dollmaker was sealed. But Samantha knows the truth. Because she's still in there. Watching. Waiting. And when the last mirror in the world is repaired. When the final Barbie is made in her image. She will return. With her perfect smile. And her unblinking eyes. Because Barbie Belmore doesn't die. She just waits. And playtime never ends. The end. Barbie Belmore is gone. But the Dollmaker's curse lives on.